first, and
Okay.
hopefully.
So we've got the head of global development from CyberConnect. We've got the co-founder of zkLink. We've got the senior wallet engineer from Trust Wallet. We've got the CEO of Orderly Network and the co-founder of Gelato.
Gelato.
We have to say it like that. Every time you have a question, it'll be like, so guys, what do you do at Gelato?
Hello.
Italian roots.
Yeah.
All right, I guess we'll just kick it off. Hey everyone, thanks for coming, and welcome to our last kind of couple panels. And this panel is going to be more on the tech side. I think it's still very important when we're thinking about the whole theme for today's event. It's going to be among mass adoption, but we do realize there are two sides of it. This one side is more about experiences in applications, how we're actually going to deliver those things to the end users so that they can come on board to actually have something to do outside of just trading or just coming for the OG Bitcoin stuff. But also there's a very important part that's tech and how we're actually making all those things happen, and also to really provide that kind of infra, also applications, everything to the builders, so we can build something that's really useful. And so that's why we're getting into this last session, last couple panels with the technology focus. We're really glad to have all those founders, builders here, top in the industry, to help us understand what is really where we are in terms of like tech, and what does it really mean for the tech to support the mass adoption of the whole Web3 in general to the general users. So we have here today Vince, David, Ran, and Hilmar from all the top projects in the infra and tech projects. Thanks for coming and to coming to this panel. I guess to start with, and maybe we can do a round of introduction just to tell us a little more about your project, about yourself, and maybe one quick question about what do you think mass adoption really means for Web3 and for your project? Just a very quick one. Okay, we can start with Vince.
Thank you, Elan. Thank you for having us. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We know that this has been a whole week, and it's been a tiring week for everyone. Really glad to see you here. My name is Vince. I'm from zkLink, co-founder of zkLink. A little bit about the project. We're building a unified trading execution layer using zero-knowledge technology. Where our mission is to unite Ethereum layer 2 ecosystems and abstract and simplify the complexities across different layer 2, layer 1 ecosystem. And this is how we contribute to the mass adoption of Web3 applications. We're an infrastructure solution. Despite we're using very complicated technology, as complicated as zero-knowledge proof itself, think all the infra builders we are aiming to enable. At the end of the day, we need applications that users like, that the users use on a daily basis. And the first step for us is to build an infrastructure that are able to provide the service on a large scale to be able to have the performance and also have the level of cost and also the simplicity of mass adoption of retail users, common users that come to Web3 applications without necessarily having to understand the complexity of the underlying technology. We have to simplify and abstract all this for our users, and while still keeping the ethos, still keeping the idea, the spirit of Web3 decentralization, self-custody, self-sovereignty over the data. I think one of the greatest ways that we're doing this is with the amazing property of zero-knowledge proof that will enable all this. Right? We find that we can do a whole new level of compromise among these different constraints that we have, given the complexity of blockchain ecosystem of it today. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, I'm David from Trust Wallet. I do engineering here, and to briefly share about Trust Wallet is a multi-chain wallet that supports 85 networks currently, including the EVM chains, the Cosmos, and many other ones. There are a lot of features that I wanted to share, but briefly we have like in-app native staking, swaps, other features, and including the recent security scanner that we launched recently. Yeah, that was like the brief introduction of Trust Wallet. And to your question about like what mass adoption means to Web3, I want
to Trust Wallet.
yeah, what we mean to Trust Wallet. But I would like to maybe like tweak that question a little bit and say like, what does mass adoption mean to Trust Wallet users? From a Trust Wallet user's perspective, when there's mass adoption, it means that Trust Wallet provides a value in their everyday life. It means that there are features that they come in their everyday life, use it every time, huge retention rate. It means that the use case of crypto increases. Naturally, the use case of wallet increases. And generally, wallet takes up more part of their life, more functionality, more revenue opportunities. Basically, Web3 somehow goes deeper into the life of people. So I think like they're mostly in a similar way, like crypto wallet. Mass adoption of crypto means mass adoption of wallet. Mass adoption of wallet means mass adoption of use case of crypto. So yeah, that's how I feel about that question. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rehan, co-founder of Orderly Network. Orderly is a DEX protocol, specifically order book, that's omni-chain, started on Near and going to the EVMs. And we're kind of further down the user funnel on the liquidity layer. So then what happens is DEXs and other people who need liquidity build on top of us. And then on top of that are like guys like Trust Wallet and other applications that service gateways. That's the first touch point for users to come. So once the gateways figure out the account abstraction and just easy ways to get users to come into crypto, we're kind of optimizing for their experience into what's still the most widely used utility in crypto, which is trading of crypto and I believe other types of assets like real world assets. All of that will probably go on chain. So then we're optimizing for liquidity, ease of use, and chain abstraction, where users should not have to worry about which chain they're on, and should be able to deal with native assets, not wrapped assets, not have to use bridges, things like that. So that's what we're dealing with and optimizing for liquidity for any asset versus centralized exchanges versus even traditional exchanges, and that's the goal. Yep.
Cool. Yeah, thanks first of all for coming here on this last day. My name is Hilma. I work at a project called Gelato. Gelato is a platform that provides Web3 backend services to over 400 plus projects in the space. Some of the projects that are using us are, for example, PancakeSwap or MakerDAO, or perpetual trading protocols or yield farming protocols, a lot of DeFi, but also NFT platforms like Zora, for example. And what we do really is our mission is to accelerate the adoption of Web3 and helping projects abstract the complexities away of having to deal with blockchains. And what we provide is basically, first of all, an abstraction layer to help projects make it easier for their users to interact with them, and we do that via account abstraction and gasless transactions. So we have a decentralized transaction relaying network on 14 different EVM chains that have already executed like over 5 million transactions. And users can seamlessly buy NFTs or send funds to their friends without even knowing that there's a blockchain underneath an application, right? So this is like the first big thing that we do. And the second big thing is we enable projects to create more feature-rich applications. And feature-rich meaning that applications can actually access data that goes beyond like the limitations of like the closed ecosystems that most blockchains are today. We do that by enabling them to connect their smart contracts to any sort of data that lives outside of their blockchain, be it like traditional Web2 APIs, other blockchain data from other chains or whatnot. And there, for example, prediction markets use us a lot to push the result of like a football match on chain, or push the price of like a collectible card on chain, or these kind of things. So this is what we try to sort of bring to the table to help projects reach mass adoption. And we work also very closely together with like the upcoming L2s and helping them integrate our services very tightly in order to have a new generation of blockchains which have all these services natively integrated, so users don't have to deal with all these complexities anymore, and we can finally provide cheap transactions, a user-friendly UX, and like feature-rich applications that are on par with Web 2 basically, and that's our mandate.
All right, thank you. I feel like there's a lot of keywords here. That's hello. Okay, cool. I feel like there's quite a lot of keywords here already shared by all of us here on the stage. Like user friendliness, like abstract away the complexities of networks and things like that. Actually, just a quick reminder about the panel. So we actually reserve 40 minutes for the panel just to allow everyone to be to have enough time to really explore different threads. And for this panel, we particularly want to make it more like a conversation. So if you feel like you want to pick up some threads from anyone on the stage, feel free to do so. You don't have to. We don't have to follow all the questions, and I'll have some questions, generic ones, and also some ones for specifically for one of you or some of you. But also feel free to to pick it up any threads there. I guess on top of the introductions and all the definitions and introduction to our projects and also what Web3 mass adoption means. What if we have to choose one or two keywords in the mass adoption trend? Like, what is in terms of tech, what is the key feature that we have to achieve, like to really help the mass adoption of Web3? For example, is it privacy, or is it like just scalability, or is it more on the UX side or something like that? If you have to choose one from your project, what would that be? And how and where are we in terms of like as a whole industry? Where are we in terms of that keywords?
Yeah, maybe to start, for me it's abstraction, and there's this buzzword called account abstraction, which is, hey, we want to abstract away the complexities of creating private public key pairs or managing.
You just took the word that came to me. Yeah. Abstraction.
That's why you started first.
Well, I can just say half and you can finish my sentences. For me it's not only account abstraction but also chain abstraction and tag abstraction at the end of the day, right? So I think it's still crazy that people have to select different networks that they need to be connected to, right? Like if I want to interact with a Web 2 application, I go to Netflix. And I go to netflix.com, I log in, and that's it, right? And then I can watch movies. But if you want to interact with Uniswap or another application, your DEX, for example, you have to know, you have to have a certain wallet installed, right? This wallet has to support a certain chain, and I have to have funds on that particular chain. I need to have the native asset of that chain to pay for gas. Then I need to have another token to then interact with the network, right? There are so many complexities that have just zero to do with the underlying application that just make it impossible for us to ever reach mass adoption, because it just kills all the fun, right? It doesn't really add any value. So I think for me the most important thing is that we come to a point where a user comes to an application and there's no chain, like they don't even know what a chain is. It comes to an application, it just log in. There's a very easy onboarding process, which is very Web 2-like. There might be some sort of private key in the background. There might be not a private key in the background. You don't even know. You can authenticate yourself using your social media profiles through everything else. Maybe you've got like a wallet on your on your smartphone, maybe, right? You don't even know that it exists, or it's embedded in the browser. So, for example, what Brave or Opera did, right? And then you log in and you don't have to deal with gas or anything. There's no pop-up of like, hey, there's this gas price, you have to pay 5 cents now. It's just like, it doesn't exist, right? You just click a button, you connect with a credit card, you have your credit card details are instantly displayed there with just USDC, or it doesn't say USDC, it just says USD. And then you can interact with it, right? And that's basically it. You feel like you're going through an application, and all these applications, it doesn't matter on which chains they are. They will probably live on their own chains, all interconnected into one sort of large environment. And you just care about your application, and you can also interact with another application that might live on a completely different chain, but you're not aware of this anymore. I think this is when we reach the state of what the internet is today. And it's just like I go to application and all the rest is completely abstracted from me, and it might happen in the background, but I'm not aware of it. The projects have to deal with it, the developers have to deal with it, but not the actual end users.
I totally agree with abstraction. kind of abstraction, chain abstraction. It means simplicity, means intuitive experience. It means that a new user come to an application will learn how to use it intuitively without having to go through a long tutorial or these kinds of user experiences is the key for mass adoption. And also to go a little bit further into that, I think we need diverse infrastructures to satisfy diverse demands. Segmentation is also needed because to be able to support, for example, a decentralized trading application with millions of users, then this has different requirements compared with Web3 social applications. They naturally need like the highest level of security. It means as much as possible decentralization and self-custody, and also the data availability. It has a very different demands in this space area compared with other lighter applications like gaming, like NFTs or utility NFTs I'm talking about, and also socials, because this not necessarily financial data you're dealing with. And for financial applications, everything has to be built on top of this, keeping all these necessary components. And for that, we need scalability as well. Scalability then on top of the security. And scalability is also a big issue for mass adoption. If we're not there yet. If you think about the layer 2s or even some other outer levels like Solana, they're not able to support application with millions of users, not mentioning billions of users, not yet. So we need multi layers. And for some applications that really is going to have billions of users, they need their their own application specific chains or roll up that can be horizontally scalable. They can scale to maybe hundreds of thousands of TPS. If you want to have a gaming application with transactions with billion users, and then for socials, there's no chains, no rollups yet there that are capable of delivering such performance right now. So we need to go further in that direction too. And a lot of optimization and implementation is still needed.
Yeah, I think abstraction is also very important, like kind of abstraction, tech abstraction. But if we think about like what is actually blocking the mass adoption of crypto, we can say that the first and most important thing is security. Security is the most important. One good example could be Visa pays tons of money to help missettled money and to refund funds that was accidentally made. But for a blockchain, it's all self-custodial, and once the payment is made, there's no one who can roll that back. And like there were many UX that also speakers mentioned, but the worst UX that the Web3 has is that there's a lot of hacking incidents. So although like it's a very uncomfortable app to use, a lot of onboarding phases, those UX are still somehow overcomable. But the worst UX that users experience is that their funds and their life savings are actually getting hacked. So I think the security is the most important part, and then later it comes the abstraction layer and the other ones. One example is that Trust Wallet this year did 44 audits for external audits and 40 internal audits. And like I think security and devotion for those is going to be the fundamental layer. And then after that, there will be the kind of abstraction layer on top of security, chain agnostic, seamless multi-chain interoperability, and those type of fancy infrastructure layers that comes on top of them. So I think security should be the foundation, considering the nature that it is a self-custodial environment and no one has the responsibility, and it is impossible to somehow like do a refund or reimburse you for what type of accident that has happened. So I would say security, and then after it comes the abstraction, infrastructures, MEV, and then a lot of things that can go on top of them.
You guys named everything. I think what's really important also is regulations, obviously, right? So there is yet to be seen institutional adoption for a lot of crypto blockchain, but it's coming, and that is heavily dependent on regulations. I mean, the recent court cases in the US, it has been good for crypto. Coinbase, Ripple, Grayscale, and lately Uniswap won a case. So hopefully that it becomes that they regulate the apps and not the protocols, which seems to be kind of what's happening. And that would really just give more guidance for future developers and entrepreneurs into where things will go. Like for institutions, in terms of DeFi, they need to know exactly who they're trading against, who they're dealing with, and that counterparty has to be KYC'd. So this is like a kind of a big issue for DEXs, because DEXs just don't KYC, right? And how this will play out, the technologies involved, whether zk KYC or other things like permissioned pools and such, is going to be affected by how they're regulated, and the assets, right? Like Ethereum, Bitcoin, they're not securities, but so this part is unclear. So the assets involved, and then the counterparties involved, and the platforms that facilitates these transactions. Like yesterday, I think CFTC have charged 0x and a few others for transacting in derivatives. So that's kind of one. So then that's veering away from. It's like -1 for these crypto derivatives platforms, right? So regulations are very important.
That's great. We feel like we covered abstraction, scalability, security, and regulation. Yeah, all important, 4 parts of it. Just a follow-up question to that. Like, so how do you guys feel about where we are at the moment in terms of all those 4, respectively 4 topics, where we're right now compared to 5 years ago, and what is the most exciting thing you're expecting to see in that particular, keyword, the trend? For example, abstraction. What's going hot right now, and what we're expecting to see in the next couple years, and scalability, security, regulation. Yeah, just to give us a little more context for the audience to fill us in for the current situation.
Yeah, abstraction-wise, I think we made quite some progress since, for example, we started. For example, like Gelato started roughly 4 years ago. We deployed on Ethereum, and back then we basically said, hey, why don't we just deploy smart contract wallets for every user, and why don't we make their transactions fully gasless and let them programmatically interact with the remainder of DeFi straight from like a programmable smart contract wallet, right? And so we actually built like this whole protocol on chain with smart contract wallets, and then Ethereum gas prices just started spiking, and then one smart contract deployment was costing like $80, and so that didn't work, right? And so we had to actually go back and focus on something else, focusing like on protocols and helping them sort of make their processes more automated, more streamlined. And now I think abstraction in UX is also very highly impacted by scalability, because the cheaper stuff gets, the easier it is to abstract, right? So we should be living in a world where projects and applications pay for all the computation that happens, right? Like on Netflix, you don't pay AWS to watch a movie, right? You pay Netflix a subscription and they pay the bills. But the problem was that no application could afford to pay their bills for their customers, right? Because it was just too expensive. And so now we're getting to a point with L2s and cheaper chains that are still secure, that we can actually abstract that layer away from them and pay for their transactions and pay for their computation. So that's already like a big step forward. Secondly, tooling has been increased and improved a lot, like this whole AA narrative that Vitalik created like 1.5 years ago. So really got a big wave of like developers and builders in the space that are building tools for it. So I think there's some standardization happening. There is some there's a lot of projects working on this, so I think we made progress, though we are not there yet. I think it's, if you think about like, okay, we have solved all of the UX issues, that's not the case at all. We are still in this sort of very divergent phase of everything, right? Divergent in terms of chains, in terms of tools, in terms of everything. And I think the bear market helps to converge everything back to like the winning standards, and then we will have probably a good framework for L2s, a good framework for account abstraction and smart contract wallets and this, right? And then we can build common tools for all these things, and then I think we can share that across the ecosystem and really have good abstractions of chains, of accounts, of private keys, of everything. There's a lot of very cool like MPC providers that launch, right, like Web3 auth and these kind of things that made the whole onboarding process easier. I think on and off ramping is significantly more efficient than it used to be. There's this project called Monerium in Europe, for example. They allow you one-to-one on and off ramping of euro to euro stablecoins on chain and back. They provide you can send funds to an IBAN and they mint you the tokens for free on chain, right? So it's like a seamless on and off boarding of assets there. So I think we're making steps in the right direction, but we are still, I still have to see an application that really I can send to my mother and she can use it, right? I still haven't seen it, and it's not there yet. So as long as that's not the case, I think we still have some work to do, but it improved, but I would have hoped it would have improved faster in like the last 4 years, I would say. But I think we're making baby steps, and hopefully in 3 years from now, we are at a point where we are ready to really have all the standards, all the tools there to make a difference and onboard a lot of users. But yeah.
I think it is since last year we've seen really meaningful progress on the abstraction of chain level. We've seen the rising of interoperability protocols, general messaging services, and then we have chain agnostic applications. Using the bridges is just the beginning. Using the bridges is still a lot for users to learn and a lot of risks to take. And this year we're seeing more applications and infrastructures like building interoperability protocol on different levels, right, including zkLink, really abstracting the different chains and rollups, so users will forget about it when they use the applications. And also on the scalability level, because as an infrastructure, we all need to. Also, I think it's true for the application builders as well. We all need to think about the 4 aspects. All right, abstraction of complexity and scalability of your application, and security, and also how to deal with regulatory. Maybe the regulation part is less of a worry right now. For scalability as an infra, this is our focus area of focus. We need to be honest, I think we're really, really early on this, really early, especially for Ethereum-centric ecosystem. For Ethereum-centric applications, we're still very early. There are 2 systems we have seen meaningful progress. There are dozens of OP rollups that have already applications usable and have reasonably good amount of TVA also, and reasonably good amount of users adoptions already. And zkEVM still super early. They're not yet usable, and the TPS-wise is still very low. It's just a little slightly better than Ethereum itself, but I wouldn't consider it to be there's a significant difference of using the layer 2 right now, using Ethereum. It is cheaper, but if you think about, even compared with all the layer 1s, EVM layer 1s, like Solana, like Polygon, they're still a lot more expensive for users to use. Make a transaction still costs you 50 cents, 40 cents easily. That is not good news for users. Next step going forward, we'll see layer 3s that would significantly reduce the cost to from 50 cents to 0.005. And there are already some application-specific infrastructure and applications that can reduce this cost while derive security from Ethereum. As we are specialized in DeFi, and we're focused in DeFi area, so I can only speak for DeFi. I don't know what is your take on this scalability for social applications or other types of applications. But for DeFi, and right now what we're seeing is that in very short term, I think in the 1 to 2 quarters, there will be applications that can derive security from Ethereum while providing you the cost per transaction 0.005 will be truly a big step for users when they think about using a decentralized application rather than a centralized platform.
The first part was the question was like where we are on mass adoption and
What's the progress and what do you look forward to?
Okay, yeah.
Especially for security.
I think we have made a lot of progress, especially like as Himar mentioned. From a payment aspect, Gelato is also like doing a bunch of stuff. Gnosis Pay, the relaying part is done by Gelato. And also there are Monerium e-money providers that launched real money on top of blockchain, and it powers the goods and services online payment. And there were some cases that people used to pay tax with crypto using Monerium. So I think in those type of aspects, there are a lot of progress. And also the focus of the industry is also a bit changing. If we see the report of USDC usage, back then there was a lot of volume that was used for speculations, but now the whole industry is somehow moving towards the utility. That means that people are using crypto not just for trading efforts, but more for payments, B2B payouts for remittance, goods and services. That means that it's not just like trading, but more people are using it in their daily life, and the ecosystem has evolved to actually enable that. One good example is a account abstraction wallet that is embedded into a Visa card. Gnosis Pay actually did it. There is also another wallet called Sora Card that does that. And now it means that from a technical perspective, the UX is getting solved. We're not there yet, like Web 2 credit card level, but UX is getting solved. Security is also getting solved. And also, it's hard to say security solved because it depends on the developer, but still, like, there is a certain level that we're heading towards. And now I think we wouldn't expect those type of like simple errors or fault of developers to fuzz the entire network, because we have experience overcoming those, and there are a lot of security experts in this field that try to prevent that actively. So I think there was .com bubble back then, like in the early 2000s. There were a lot of speculation, and then a lot of investments were made in those fields, but like more than 90% of companies got bankrupt, didn't work well, but still we are living in the .com era, and that enabled mass adoption. So crypto, I think, will start with speculation like we did, but eventually it's moving to utility, and there are many problems that are getting solved. And like you mentioned, regulation will be the key to that. I'm not quite sure how regulation will work out, but builders will still building it, and we are pushing for that. So who will know, like, this might just be history of like people speaking about Web3, but I'm quite sure that in the near future or in the longer future, people will use blockchain, mainly because it gives people the chance to gain another wealth. It's a new flow of wealth. And secondly, there are a lot of inefficiencies in the Web 2 system that could be efficiently solved in Web 3. So yeah, I'm very optimistic about the future of Web 3.
Yeah, so specific regulations, I think it's going in the right direction. What you'll see is more and more crypto companies, starting with centralized companies, get regulated, as you're seeing now. Different countries and jurisdictions creating licenses, like Korea, VASP licenses, Hong Kong with stablecoin licenses, exchange licenses. US already has a bunch, Europe. And the guys who are already regulated, like the banks, the brokerages, fintech company, etc., entering into this area, perhaps with licenses that details this business, crypto business. So the gateways become merged, right? Where banks and crypto exchanges essentially are both gateways, and they're all kind of regulated. And I think every bank will have their own stable coin, like their deposit coin, and these stable coins are also regulated. And I think there's been favorable regulations for these stable coins like USDC, etc. And there's more being issued now out of Hong Kong. And then that blurs the line between kind of stable coins and fiat currencies in general, right? Perhaps like this on-ramp of fiat to crypto one day isn't even necessary because everyone's interacting with stablecoins, so then there's less of an on-ramp needed. So I think it's all happening, moving in the right directions. It's just more the kind of the topics to discuss these days are still what's a security, and then how to regulate DeFi, right? So then DeFi is still a very gray area, which gives it time to grow, but I think eventually that gets regulated somehow. And the only way to be truly not regulatable is to be like fully decentralized, right? Like Ethereum. And that's kind of how we're trying to position ourselves for DeFi, to be truly decentralized.
What's your take on KYC? Like, would you say you will implement KYC on like an app level at some point, or do you think most DEXs, or let's say most interfaces that interact with smart contracts that might be DEXs, will they have KYC in the next couple of years? Or?
I think, yeah, so institutions, so we talked to many institutions. Institutions, they need to know the counterparty. Like this is this is the one thing that's preventing them, like whether they're traders or like brokers or banks or whatever, from interacting with DeFi, like asset management firms, because they need to know the counterparty. They don't want to interact with smart contracts that's dealt with like sanctioned countries, North Korea, etc. So this is preventing them from getting in. There's various tools that monitor these smart contracts, chain analysis and such, but some accept like some percentage, small percentage of volumes from these sanctioned addresses, but a lot, they don't even have this tech, or they don't want to deal with anything that has. So then KYC becomes mandatory for them. I mean, there's like permission chains like Avalanche's Spruce chain, which is fully institutional. And they got all the institutions, so it's a KYC chain, but then you need segregated liquidity and whatnot. And there's whitelisting whitelisting addresses that can interact with your smart contract to give like a whitelisted interactions. So I think both can potentially play out. And there's, but yeah, I think DEXs will need to have some instance of a DEX, perhaps like a separate pool, like permission pool, or for us a separate order book that only deals with KYC'd addresses.
Do you think that KYC will be implemented?
Yeah, this is a question that we discussed a lot actually internally.
Maybe just one moment is, do you think, like for you, like do you think KYC should be implemented on like a block level, on like the execution environment, let's say on the L2 itself, or do you think KYC should be in the smart contract on a more permissioned chain that can also be used with non-KYC?
Okay, to long term short, I don't believe that DeFi can be KYC. DeFi is decentralized. It's impossible to KYC DeFi if it's true DeFi. If it's truly decentralized, it's impossible to regulate. However hard the regulators try, because there will be like hybrid models, like CDFi, we believe will be institutional trader friendly, and that there will be decentralized product that impossible to regulate, because technically it's impossible. You can implement KYC in wallets. That's where you can trace. That's where you can monitor. But from the smart contract level, there are different types of products. For AMMs, imagine that you need to KYC yourself using Uniswap. Then you would have another. It's a better version that you do not have to use KYC, and the users that don't want to be KYC, they will go there. And then, there are so many options on chain. It's not difficult to build like DEX, but for like heavier implementations like order books, it's different story, because order books nowadays is still hybrid model. So regulator will go after order books, and that is also the pressure that DYDX is facing. That is exactly the reason why they're going to Cosmos from Ethereum. Although they understand very well that liquidity remains on Ethereum, and you go there, they're taking a very big risk of losing their users and liquidities, but they're still doing this because of regulation. And that is also the fact that they're not fully decentralized. That is also why they're building V4, V5 with decentralized order matching. Once they get there, it will become a new story. There will be some other teams working their work without revealing the identities, and you will have products available for that purpose. And if this plays out that you have a strong requirements for KYC, and these products will be serving the users that have the needs to, comply, whatever, the banks or institutional traders. But for common users, a lot of common users, really they don't have to go through that process because they have the options. They will have the products without having to be KYC. I think for mass adoption, I don't believe KYC for DeFi is the way we're going to. Yeah. But for institutions, yes.
That's actually a very natural segue to one of our next questions. Actually, we only have 5 to 10 minutes left, so we'll have to be quick in these 2 rounds of questions, and also trying to put it back to the more the mass user side. So I think like you mentioned a very good point about the use cases. Like for now, to be honest, we still have to agree that DeFi probably is still for now the only kind of like the use case that we really already find the product market fit. Like people are really using it like for the real like benefits. But when we're talking about social, when we're talking about gaming, many other use cases, we're still kind of on the way to find the real product and trying to really get the real users. But if that's the case for now, if we're talking about mass adoption, but if for now most of the use cases on crypto Web3 is still around finance or still around DeFi, how do you think we can move forward from there? And if there's like a lot of criticisms about crypto being over financializing everything, making everything like an asset, and making like every use case like a casino, how is that going to be appealing to the mass users? And how do we move forward from here? Maybe Vince, you can start here.
I can only give some personal opinions on this. I think I'm very bullish on Web3 social, although there are many others not. Right. I think this is a good use case because of data sovereignty. I think it is also one of the essence of crypto. And having your own data and own your own data, and that will change how we interact with people. Because I'm not a big fan of Facebook. I'm not a big fan of centralized platforms that owns the data and can rock the data. and also I'm very bullish on some gamings like autonomous awards. There have been some projects building the gaming engines on chain like Dojo from Starknet, and also there are other teams building that too. Though this is very interesting use case for me, and there's a lot of gamers that we may be interested in. That's still very early, but yeah. Also, I think some utilities, NFT utilities would be interesting. Though the major use case we've seen is speculation and PFPs. Yeah, that's not really the utility. That's just fun speculation. But with the help of NFT, we can change the way we like sell tickets and access to these services in real world. We can solve real world problems there. Yeah, and also for some RWAs we're working on. Yeah, there's use cases that we're trying to work out how to perpetualize some real world assets and open doors for traders to buy and trade the assets across markets, across asset types at one stop, and also simplified and abstracted.
I think initially before now there are a lot of NFTs, socials, gaming, but back then it was quite more focused on the finance area. I think this is because of Bitcoin initially started as a peer-to-peer payment system. The underlying how can I say the underlying intrinsical aspect of blockchain was actually starting from finance, and they wanted to somehow, I wouldn't say that it's opposing the US dollar system, but there were those kind of sentiments in the Bitcoin, about that aspect. So I think that is somehow, it was affected by that, and blockchain strength also exists in the finance system. For example, there isn't any way to do a peer-to-peer payment or a DeFi or a lending system without an intermediary that is trusted, but blockchain enabled that. So the use case of blockchain in the base layer is finance, but we can somehow like escalate to social, GameFi, and many other aspects. So when the utility grows, like the whole industry is moving from speculation to real world utility, there will be more use cases for social. There could be DID, which is also a great form to reduce the inefficiency that the Web2 ecosystem has. So I think the use case is growing, the technology is growing. People don't see blockchain just as a form to invest, but there are many types of apps that are coming up. Regulations are also somehow opening up in an aspect that they are somehow giving guidance. I wouldn't say they're really open, but they're somehow giving guidance that in order for you to do these types of services, you need to follow these rules. So those types of rules are also helping the Web3 companies in that aspect. So I think like as time flies, there will be more utilities, and the whole industry will move from speculation to real world utility aspects.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I think it's just gaming and social. I'm a believer. CyberConnect, I'm a fan.
Yeah, I think I'm actually very bullish. I think the blockchains are like shared ledgers, right? It's mostly about like the financialization of things. You can also make a lot of things not on blockchains that work, right? I think a lot of features are benefiting from like this technology and like having this shared runtime and a shared serverless environment and interoperability and payments natively integrated. So I think there are a lot of benefits to that. But yeah, I think the OG things like payments and finance are still the ones that will benefit the most from it over the long run. And we can probably use it for a lot of other things as well. But I think it will be still mainly these. And I think now they are coming to fruition slowly. Like we can now see payments actually scale at some point. So I'm very bullish on this.
Yeah, so like finance is definitely not like a demon or something. Like to crypto is still like one of the key strengths of how we can bring that to the people. That's like alternative payment system and also a monetary system. Yeah, so we are running out of time, and thank you very much for like a very elaborated and also comprehensive kind of primer on all the tech. Just final 2 rounds of rapid fire questions. Could be a little bit spicy, but take it very quickly. So Himar, you actually mentioned something about this. So you were talking about you're waiting for some applications to come up to be really usable and very user friendly, and you can explain that to your Nana. So which one would you say would be the bottleneck right now, tech or applications for the mass adoption?
Right now it's still a tech, 100%. Like an application can come, but it's not like the tech isn't there to really service millions of people. We're working on it, but it's not there yet.
Okay. Ryan?
I'd say both. Both are immature.
Okay.
For me, I think app is 70, tech is 30. App mainly means the use case. People don't really see a use case until now to use them in their everyday life. Tech is also a bottleneck, but I think like app would probably be the main, but I think tech could be, but who knows?
We're really very focused on application-specific infrastructure, and why we're doing this because we believe tech is not ready. Tech is the bottleneck. Otherwise, we would have to just go directly to build applications that we believe that are going to be user-friendly, and because we haven't found anything that can support the applications that we think is going to that can offer these types of user experience, can onboard millions of users. No, there's none we can find. Okay, we'll say okay, fine, we're doing this. We build it. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So last one will be, so as infra projects and tech projects, we definitely work not just for the users, right? We also work with the developers. So in terms of like bringing Web3 to mass adoption, which part is harder to work with? Developers, or getting developers to work with you for mass adoption, or getting the users ready for mass adoption? Which one is more challenging at the moment?
Okay. I think first step is actually for us as an infra provider is actually get the builders. We are working and we want to continue to work with top class DEX founders, DEX builders that has intensive experience in financial product designing, innovative ideas, and feature-rich applications, not another DEX. We're not building infra for people to reinvent the wheels. We want the DEX founders to come to us to come up with original ideas, new features. At the very least, they should be able to build a decentralized finance, decentralized FTX, which is a big challenge, to be honest. If you think about how big the team is at Binance and FTX, and they build really amazing products, right? So they're serving millions of users, really millions of users. And if your DEX product want to replicate and want to provide the feature-rich product, then that's the first step, and then you can start onboard users. And users will come if you provide that types of user experience and also cheap to use. I don't see why the users are not using them. Yeah.
That's a hard question.
Yeah, but we can be quick.
Yeah, I'll be quick. I think it's just a matter of sequence. Ultimately, it's the users that we want to bring on board. So users will be the final goal, and to that goal, there will be some intermediaries, and that will be onboarding developers. We have a lot of open source wallet codes, and crypto.com wallet, blockchain.com wallet built on top of our open source repositories. So we are doing a bunch of things to onboard developers, and we're also doing a Discord and Twitter AMA weekly. So please also participate in our Discord and Twitter space as well. But I would say it's a matter of sequence. All we want in the end is retail users, institutional users, so user is the goal. But to that end, we still need developers to onboard and create good projects.
Yeah, I think it's definitely users. Developers, I don't think it's that difficult. It's kind of a hot, not that much this year, but in the bull market, it's a very hot industry, and there's tokens, and it's interesting. They can deal a lot with some even like the immaturity of it, right? But users, they come in and you have to do all these. There are all these UX issues, so they don't want to even bother. Once they have to the phrases that you have to memorize, and just like dealing with switching networks and stuff, they don't want to deal with that. So it's definitely the users that's getting blocked, and there's so much friction that we need to solve.
I agree with him.
Okay, cool. Okay, I guess that's it. Thank you guys. Thanks Vince, David, Ran, and Humar. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for breaking ground, for the whole tech industry and for the Web3 to bring that to mass adoption. Let's give another round of applause, to the panelists here. Okay, thank you.